This is the standard agreement for the sale of real estate, par form ASR, and in this theme, we will discuss inclusions and exclusions. You'll find these topics in paragraphs 7, 19, and 32, and you'll find this blank form in the full library of documents in Dotloop. So let's scroll down to paragraph 7. So it would be great if you read this in full and then also compared it to the seller's property disclosure paragraph 16. So in order for an inclusion in the seller's property disclosure to be included with the property and conveyed to the buyer, it also needs to be listed here. So make sure that any representation in the multiple listing service and the seller's disclosure makes its way onto this form. So you'll notice that there are certain things that are automatically included in the sale, including lighting fixtures and chandeliers, anything that's like mounting brackets and hardware for television and sound equipment, smoke detectors, carbon monoxide detectors, carpeting, existing window screens, storm windows, storm doors, window covering hardware, including rods and brackets, shades and blinds, built-in air conditioners, built-in appliances, the range, the oven, dishwashers, trash compactors. The reason why I highlight these items is because you will often see them in paragraph 16 of the seller's property disclosure as inclusions. Well, they're automatically included, so you don't need to repeat them here. What you'll notice that is missing from here is the refrigerator, the washer, the dryer, a standalone freezer, and any window air conditioner units. So if your client would like those to be included, you need to indicate them on these lines: refrigerator, washer, dryer, etc. And then I always add in a catchphrase of, and any other inclusion listed in the seller's property disclosure, to catch all the rest. Two other things to note here are that you will automatically tell your seller that the rods and brackets for their curtains are automatically included in the sale. So if those are specialty items to the seller and they want to take them, they should replace them before they even list the home. Similarly, any mounting brackets or hardware for television or sound equipment is automatically included. So if your seller was anticipating taking those items with them and reinstalling them in their new home, you'll want to tell them to take them off the walls and just patch up the walls before you even list the home. And at the very least, if they don't do that and you get to an agreement of sale, make sure you list them as excluded items so that the buyer does not get upset when they go to closing and those items have been removed. And lastly, lighting fixtures, it's no surprise that lighting fixtures are included, but on occasion there will be a seller that has a specialty chandelier or lighting fixture that was given to them. It's special to them. They don't know if they can get it again, and they want to take it with them. So it would be better for them to replace that item now before the buyer sees it, because it will become the topic of discussion during your negotiations. And we don't need to be negotiating over chandeliers. We're selling property here, people, not, fixtures. You'll also note here that there's language, unless otherwise stated, the following items are included in the sale but not in the purchase price. This doesn't mean that the buyer is paying for them separately. What it means is that the purchase price being paid is for the property, and they're not basically financing a $400 appliance over 30 years. The lenders don't like to think that the buyer's using their mortgage money for that. If there are things in the property that would normally be excluded and you are concerned that the seller might try to leave it in the property, you'll want to include it in the excluded section here. So for example, I have seen it where there's a new washer dryer in the basement, but they never remove the old washer dryer. Well, washers and dryers are considered personal property, so those would be excluded. But for the fact that the seller probably thinks it's just okay to leave them down there, or they forgot that they're even there at all because they started piling it with junk. So it's a good idea to write in this section 7C any items that would normally be excluded that you absolutely want to make sure and highlight to the seller that you want to be removed from the property. Another good example is like exercise equipment that has become shelving in the basement, or racks, a drying rack for clothes, which I have absolutely seen. If the seller wants to sell the buyer items like furniture or other things that would be considered personal property, it would be better for the buyer and seller to create a separate bill of sale that outlines all the things that the seller will leave in the property for the buyer if the buyer is paying the seller for those items. If the seller is leaving them for free, that would be fine to include in an addendum. Paragraph 19 discusses home warranties. Home warranty is a third-party insurance policy that covers repairs in the property. So it's not going to correct things that don't actively break under the contract period for that insurance policy. So you'll want to read the fine print and understand exactly what it covers. So there's a couple ways you can go here. As a listing agent, within 2 weeks of signing the listing agreement, you can order a seller coverage home warranty that will cover the seller from the time they list through closing, and then they can, if they decide to purchase it at closing, it'll cover the buyer for 1 year post-closing. So you can either advertise the property with a home warranty on it, and that might actually remove any objections to older appliances or mechanicals that the buyer may have and make it easier to sell the property. Or you can order it for your client and hold it in your back pocket until the buyer negotiates it in the contract, if at all. So a buyer could negotiate the seller to pay for a home warranty at the initial offer, during the inspections, or as in one case, something broke at closing, or the day of closing, it was discovered. So we actually ended up buying the home warranty for the buyer and putting it in place at closing. So there's a variety of ways that you can do it. As the listing agent, I would recommend just put the warranty in place for your client, because honestly, they don't even have to buy it, but they've got the coverage in case they need it. Lastly, paragraph 32. So if there's anything else that you need to include here that the buyer would want or the seller would want to leave in the property and you just didn't have enough room in paragraph 7, you can include it here. Or if it just didn't seem to fit the context of that paragraph. And this concludes the theme of inclusions and exclusions.